Hi guys, Miss Joelle here. I'm going to continue reading our book Fuzzy Mud. Let's see, we are on chapter 12. Wednesday, November 3rd, 7:08 a.m. Tamaya awoke to her favorite song. Cold air came through her window, purposely left open just a crack, making the warmth of the covers that much cozier. Her music came on at 7:08 every morning because 8 was her favorite number and Monica's favorite number was 7. Her best friend Monica also woke up each day at the exact time. Tamaya's thoughts drifted back to last year. There was a huge fireplace in the back of her 4th grade classroom. Her teacher had filled it with pillows, and when the students finished their work, they were allowed to go into the fireplace and read. The fireplace was so big, there was room in there for at least 4 kids. And she and Monica were usually first of the 2 back there, side by side, reading their books and trying not to giggle. That kind of sounds amazing. As Tamaya was thinking about this, a growing sense of dread slowly crept into her memories. The image of the pillowed fireplace gave way to the woods, her torn sweater, and Chad. His cold eyes staring at her as he said, "You're next, Tamaya." Her hand tingled. She brought it out from under the covers to have a look. At first she thought the rash had cleared, but as her eyes adjusted to the light, she realized the red bumps were still there, just covered by some kind of powdery crust. There was powder on her pillow too, and when she pulled back the sheets, she could see it all over the bed. It was a pinkish bronze color, the same color as her skin. She leapt out of bed and hurried to the bathroom. The powder washed right off, but the rash had spread. Red bumps coated her entire hand and continued down to her wrist. Some of the bumps had turned into blisters. Looking at herself in the mirror, she could see a crusty area on the right side of her face. She splashed it with water and then scrubbed the entire area very hard with a soapy washcloth and very hot water. There didn't appear to be any bumps on her face. It looked a little red, but that could have just been from her scrubbing so hard. Her mother's jar of miracle hand cream was in Tamaya's bathroom. The night before, she had dabbed a little bit on each bump and then gently rubbed it in. Now she went whole hog. She dug her hand deeply into the chalky ointment and pulled out a big glob of the stuff. She smeared it thickly over the entire area. She returned to her bedroom, where she bundled up her sheets, then took them to the washing machine. She set the temperature gauge to hot. "You're washing your sheets now?" Tamaya spun around. Her mother was already dressed, wearing a cranberry-colored skirt and jacket. Her eyeshadow was the same color as her clothes. "Because of my rash," Tamaya told her, "so it doesn't spread." "Let me see." Tamaya held out her hand. "It looks a little better, I think," said her mother. Tamaya knew that was probably because it was covered up by the hand cream, but she didn't say anything. Her mother's breath smelled like toothpaste and coffee. "Tell you what," her mother said. "You tell Marshall I'll be picking you up right after school today. I can give him a ride home too if he wants, but then I'm taking you to see Dr. Sanchez." Tamaya nodded, glad that her rash would get treated. 2 times 64 equals 128. 2 times 128 equals 256. She put on her backpack, positioning the straps so that they covered the hole in her sweater, then walked quickly through the house and out through the door before her mother could get too good a look at her. She still didn't know how she'd explain the hole. She reached Marshall's house just as he was coming outside. He was wearing his old glasses. He had switched from glasses to contacts over the summer. She liked his glasses better. She had thought his face looked blank without them. "You're wearing your glasses," she said. He shrugged and then said, "I lost my contacts in the wood." "Oh." In her mind, she could see Chad slugging him in the face, his contacts flying out of his eyes, although she realized it might not have happened that way at all. She could see no bruises on his face. He just looked tired and washed out, like he hadn't slept for 6 days. He dragged his feet as he walked. On other days, Tamaya had to struggle just to keep up with him. But as they continued slowly up the sidewalk, she began to worry that she might be late. Her tingling sensation had become more of a prickling. It felt as if her hand were being stabbed by a thousand tiny needles. "Oh, my mom's picking me up after school," she told Marshall. "She's going to take me to see the doctor because I got a rash or something in the woods." She showed him her hand, but he hardly glanced at it. You didn't tell her we went there, did you? Marshall asked. No, because if you did, we'd both be in big... I said I didn't tell her. Good. She can give you a ride home, too, if you want. Yeah, whatever, Marshall said, but she knew that he'd be glad for the ride, glad to be safe from Chad. They turned onto Richmond Road. There was a lot of early morning traffic, and once again, Tamaya realized how much safer Marshall would have been if they had walked home the usual way. She wouldn't have torn her sweater, he wouldn't have lost his contacts, and she probably wouldn't have gotten a rash either, she thought, although she wasn't really sure how she'd gotten that. As they walked alongside the woods, that feeling of dread that she'd had when she first woken up returned. It seemed to grow a little heavier with each step. She couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was that she was dreading. She didn't think she was all that afraid of Chad, as long as other people were around. It was something different, something worse. It was as if she knew something terrible was about to happen. But it was so bad her brain wouldn't allow her to think about it. They reached Woodridge Lane. This is where I was supposed to meet him, said Marshall. There was an area of weeds and dirt between the sidewalk and the fence. Tamaya figured that Chad must have climbed the fence and gone into the woods when Marshall didn't show up. At least there would have been people around, Tamaya pointed out. It was worse in the woods. Don't remind me. He kicked at the ground. Tamaya felt sorry for him. She didn't like feeling that way. She liked it better when she used to look up to Marshall. Chad's just a big jerk, she said. I don't care about him, Marshall muttered. A big fat jerk, she repeated, loud enough so that if Chad was hiding nearby, he would definitely hear her. They turned into Woodridge Lane. The woods were on both sides of them as they headed toward the school. Tamaya quickened her pace. We'd better hurry so we're not late, she said, but Marshall continued to lag behind. She walked faster and faster, and then something inside her just made her want to run. It wasn't just fear of being tardy. She felt scared, although of what she didn't know. She was out of breath when she reached the line of cars backed up from the school. Only then did she stop running. She heard someone call her name. Marilee, Monica's little sister, was hanging halfway out the window of her mother's Mercedes, waving at her. Tamaya waved back, using her left hand. She tried to keep her right one hidden. She waited by the curb as Marilee and then Monica climbed out of the car. Where were you yesterday? Monica asked. I kept trying to call. Tamaya wanted to tell Monica everything, but didn't risk it. She knew Monica would tell Hope, and then it would be all over school. I don't know, in and out? You need to get a cell phone, Monica told her. Well, they're not allowed in school, Tamaya reminded her. Well, you can use it after school, said Monica. I was in and out too, said Marilee. And then I went in again, and then I went back out. Monica told her sister to shut up. So, you'll never believe who I saw yesterday, she said to Tamaya. Mr. Beauchamp, said Marilee. Shut up, I'm telling her, Mr. Beauchamp. He was jogging right in front of my house. He sees me and he says, Bonjour, Mademoiselle Monique. I swear I almost lost it. Mr. Beauchamp had been their French teacher since the 2nd grade. You wouldn't think that a bald guy would have such hairy legs, said Monica. Tamaya forced herself to smile. Marshall was relieved to see Tamaya safely enter the building with her friend Monica and with no sign of Chad. He wasn't sure what he would have done if Chad had attacked her. He liked to think that he would have tried to protect her, but he also knew that he might not have. He reached the front door. The 7th grade was located in the basement. It had been the servants' quarters, but everyone at school called it the dungeon. It felt like a dungeon to Marshall. He trudged on down the stairs, doomed to whatever torture and misery awaited. Chapter 13. Disaster Warning. Excerpt from a secret Senate hearing. Professor Alice Mayfair. When I was born in 1975, there were 4 billion people living in the world. That's a lot. 100 years ago, there were less than 2 billion. But today, as I speak to this committee, there are more than 7 billion of us. Senator Foote. Oh, what does that have to do with violin? Professor Alice Mayfair. More than 300,000 babies are born every single day. Day after day after day, every one of them will need food, water, and energy. Senator Foote. Oh, exactly why this country needs Bioline. Senator Wright. Excuse me, Professor. It was my understanding that you were going to testify about possible disasters that could result from a man-made organism being introduced into the environment. It sounds to me as if you're in favor of Bioline. Professor Alice Mayfair. Oh, there will be disasters. Whether from Bioline or something else, who knows? By the year 2050, an additional 2 billion people will inhabit this planet. 9 billion. Senator Foote. Which is why we need Bioline. Professor Alice Mayfair. Unless we do something to control world population, nothing will help us. Senator. Not Bioline, not super duper crops and fertilizer, not colonies on Mars. Senator Wright. Let me get this straight. You want us to keep people from having too many babies all over the world? Professor Alice Mayfair. Yes. Senator March. Well, I'm afraid that's just a bit beyond the scope of this committee. Okay, let's end that there. And I shall see you again soon. Bye.